It's somewhat hard to believe, but Sonic Generations will be 13 years old this November. I distinctly remember the excitement I felt as a Sonic fan at the time, seeing iconic stages being remade with such vibrant, eye-popping visuals. It was a fun, albeit brief experience that celebrated 20 years of Sonic history. Now, it has returned with the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations. The franchise has picked up a lot of momentum lately, with the highly anticipated third movie on the way very soon. With this in mind, it's no wonder why SEGA made the decision to bring Generations back. However, this is no ordinary remaster, as it contains an entirely new game alongside it. This makes it an enticing purchase for both old and new fans alike, so is the overall package as good as it sounds? Firstly, Sonic Generations is mostly the same as you remember it. In fact, it's likely you won't notice any differences if you haven't played the original in over 10 years. That's not to say it's exactly the same as the 2011 release, as there are some notable changes and additions. Right off the bat, experienced players will notice the new default control scheme. Boosting is now assigned to the right trigger on gamepads, which is something that Sonic Frontiers recently established. Of course, it is possible to change back to the original control scheme, but this is an interesting choice nonetheless. Additionally, playing with lives enabled is optional, making it possible to reattempt stages infinitely. This system felt somewhat unnecessary in the original game, so this is a welcome quality of life improvement. Furthermore, the drop dash from Sonic Mania also makes an appearance. It enhances the classic levels but doesn't have many use cases in the modern ones. The biggest change made to Generations by far is the introduction of a new script and voice lines. However, the game's original narrative was never anything to write home about, so the differences will probably be irrelevant for casual audiences. The edits made are mostly an improvement, although I'd be lying if I said that I cared very much about this aspect of the game. Fortunately, Sonic Generations is still as fun to play as it ever was. Rushing through stages with a blazing sense of speed never fails to be exhilarating. These are levels that beg to be replayed, and it's still enjoyable for someone like me who has already experienced the game several times over the years. For those who want even more excuses to go through these stages again, Sonic X Shadow Generations introduces Chao to rescue. While it's definitely not as exciting as a Chao Garden, it's a cute addition for those who want to collect them. Visually, Generations still holds up quite well thanks to its strong art direction. Despite showing a few signs of its age, each location is full of life and color. An enhanced UI makes the game look incredibly crisp on modern displays, wonderfully preserving the overall presentation. This is easily one of the best remasters the series has to offer, making for a vast improvement over something such as Sonic Colors Ultimate. It's a great entry point for newcomers that retains everything that made the original game work. That being said, the other game featured in this package is probably what you're really here for. It's no secret that I'm something of a Shadow fan, so excuse my bias, but Shadow Generations is easily the highlight of this release. This is the first game the Dark Hedgehog has received since his 2005 solo adventure. Unlike that game, however, Shadow Generations is of a much more consistent quality. It's unfortunately very easy to imagine an alternate reality where this was nothing more than a low-effort cash-in for the third Sonic movie, but that's not the case. Despite the short length of the campaign, it's far from an afterthought. It's a game that combines the structure of Sonic Generations with several elements from Sonic Frontiers. Each location features one fully 3D act and one fully 2D act. I somewhat prefer this approach to the 2D and 3D hybrid stages found in Sonic Generations. Moreover, Shadow feels fantastic to control in general. He can move with both speed and precision, making for a smooth action platforming experience. Shadow's signature chaos control is also implemented as a mechanic, and it is as cool as one might expect. Once the gauge is full, the left trigger can be pressed to freeze time for 5 seconds. This leads to some imaginative solutions for the platforming challenges the player faces throughout the game. As much as I enjoyed Sonic Frontiers, it suffered from some glaring flaws that detracted from the overall experience. Thankfully, Shadow Generations features considerably more polished and superior platforming. It demonstrates that Sonic Team is still striving to improve and deliver quality products. The 3D levels feature tons of branching paths, making them easily replayable. The process of experimenting with alternate routes and achieving shorter completion times is addictive, to say the least. In addition, there are also challenge acts that must be completed to access boss battles, and surprisingly, they don't feel like a chore despite the obvious padding. For the most part, the new Doom powers are utilized well and don't interfere with the flow of gameplay anywhere near as much as I initially feared. They add variety to the levels while still feeling like a natural extension of Shadow's abilities. The only one I could see giving people trouble is Doom Morph, although it's a lot more enjoyable to use after you master its quirks. The white space of Shadow Generations is a much more exciting hub world to explore than what is found in Sonic's counterpart. It's an open zone with tons of collectibles to find and several challenges to complete. However, to open treasure chests, you'll need to find keys hidden within stages, but this is far less tedious than it sounds. As soon as the opening cutscene plays, the upgrade in animation quality is noticeable. Characters look considerably more expressive and a lot less lifeless. This increase in animation quality extends to the gameplay as well. Shadow's movements feel fluid while also communicating the intensity and power of the character. Additionally, some of the game's levels also feature some visually striking transitions that make for quite the spectacle. Of course, as usual for the franchise, the soundtrack doesn't miss. It does rely on plenty of previous tracks, but each stage features energetic remixes that add to the excitement. While the music here isn't as brilliant as what Frontiers had to offer, it's certainly more than acceptable. The graphics aren't anything that's going to push a PC to its limits, but the game looks like there was a budget behind it. Visually, it's one of the strongest 3D Sonic games, even if I wouldn't say it's the best. Perhaps the next mainline Sonic game will finally match the production values of Unleashed. For the longest time, it had felt as if SEGA wanted the Sonic franchise to distance itself from Shadow and his wonderfully bonkers backstory. However, with Shadow Generations, the series now openly embraces almost everything about the character without a hint of shame. Don't expect those guns to be acknowledged again anytime soon. This is the first game in ages to truly understand the appeal of Shadow's character. His phase of being a Vegeta parody is over. Now he's back to being the tragic anti-hero that made him memorable during the 2000s. It's a bold return that one can't help but respect. Shadow Generations' story marks the return of Black Doom, the main antagonist of Shadow's 2005 game. While he and Shadow may be related by blood, Shadow is determined to put an end to the evil alien once and for all. There aren't many big surprises beyond that, but it's a fun ride. While the narrative does somewhat feel like a retread of what came before, it's definitely more interesting in what is featured in Sonic Generations. Between this and the truly excellent Dark Beginnings prologue animation, the future is looking bright for Shadow. There's almost no doubt that Sonic X Shadow Generations is one of the best 3D entries in the series. This is a great Sonic title with no catch. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's my favorite, yet it's very difficult to put down. Any issues I encountered here were no more than minor inconveniences. These games may not take very long to beat, but you will be playing them for at least a while after the credits roll. If you have yet to experience a Sonic game, I can say with confidence that this is the place to start. For those who are like me and want more of Shadow Generations, it will be receiving a movie-themed DLC pack this December, which will feature the voice of Keanu Reeves. It's never been a better time to be a Sonic fan, and it's incredibly exciting to see where this franchise will go next. Do yourself a favor and check out Sonic X Shadow Generations as soon as possible. Final Weapon is giving Sonic X Shadow Generations a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Sonic X Shadow Generations is currently available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC via Steam and the Epic Games Store. SEGA provided Final Weapon with a copy of Sonic X Shadow Generations for review purposes.